We live in a world that celebrates noise. Every achievement, every step forward, every idea is broadcasted instantly. But here's the truth, real growth, the kind of transformation that shapes who you are at your core happens quietly when no one is watching. The silence is where your foundation is built. And without that foundation, nothing you show to the world can last. Think about it. The seed that grows into a mighty tree begins underground in complete darkness. No one claps for the seed. No one takes pictures of the roots pushing through the soil. Yet that hidden work is the most important part of its journey. In the same way, your life requires seasons of silence, moments where you are building strength, skills, and character away from the eyes of others. Why is silence so powerful? Because silence removes distraction. When no one is watching, you are free to focus not on approval, but on progress. You are free to learn without fear of judgment, to fail without the weight of embarrassment, and to grow without the pressure of comparison. The absence of noise creates space for clarity, and clarity creates direction. The challenge is that most people want to announce every step, every plan, every small win. But when you do that, you give away your energy, you trade your focus for validation, and validation never builds strength, it only feeds ego. Building in silence allows you to preserve your energy and direct it where it matters most, into the work itself. And when the work is ready, when the foundation is solid, when the roots are deep enough, that's when you rise. That's when you let the results speak louder than any words ever could. People won't need to be convinced because what you've built will be undeniable. So here's the lesson. Don't fear the quiet seasons. Don't rush to show the world what you're working on. Use silence as your training ground, your laboratory, your secret place of growth. Because the greatest confidence doesn't come from proving others wrong. It comes from proving yourself right in the silence long before the applause. Fefke notes of the speech, true growth happens in silence, not in the noise of constant validation. Silence removes distractions and creates clarity, which leads to direction. Announcing every step drains energy, building quietly preserves it. Roots grow underground before a tree ever appears. Your silent work is the same. Results built in silence speak louder than any words or explanations. True growth happens in silence, not in the noise of constant validation. This idea may sound simple, but it carries with it the deepest truth about how people transform their lives. In a world where everything is visible, where achievements are displayed like trophies on social media, we often forget that the most meaningful development never happens in public. It happens in the moments no one else can see, in the quiet hours when you are alone with your own thoughts, your struggles, and your determination to keep moving forward. When you choose to build yourself in silence, you create the conditions necessary for real progress. Growth is not about what others think of you. It is about who you become when you strip away all external validation. The noise of the world often distracts us, demanding attention and approval, but silence does the opposite. Silence gives you space to face your weaknesses honestly, to develop skills patiently, and to nurture resilience steadily without the interference of outside judgment. In the silence, there is no audience, no applause, and no criticism. Just you, your effort, and your vision for who you want to become. Think about how nature works. A caterpillar does not announce to the world that it is preparing to transform into a butterfly. It enters a cocoon hidden away, and within that silence, it undergoes one of the most remarkable transformations in existence. If it were to rush out too soon, if it were to break the process halfway, the butterfly would never have the strength to fly. Human growth works in the same way. If we are too eager to be seen, too quick to demand recognition before we are ready, we rob ourselves of the strength and wisdom that only silent growth can bring. One of the problems with constantly seeking validation is that it conditions us to measure progress not by our own standards, but by the reactions of others. If people cheer, we feel worthy. If people criticize, we feel discouraged. This cycle keeps us dependent on external approval and blinds us from recognizing the quiet, but powerful growth happening within. Real growth, however, is not concerned with applause. It is concerned with depth, with mastery, with endurance. A musician, for example, cannot rely on instant validation while learning an instrument. Hours upon hours of silent practice, where mistakes are made and corrected, build the foundation for true skill. When the performance finally comes, the music speaks for itself because the silent work was done. In silence, there is also the freedom to fail without shame. Failure is an inevitable part of growth, but when we expose our every attempt to the judgment of others, failure becomes something we fear. We start to play it safe, avoiding risks that could actually help us grow. In silence, failure is not final. It is feedback. You fall, you adjust, you try again. Each time you become stronger, not because the world cheered you on, but because you kept going despite the absence of applause. That is where confidence is born, in the quiet repetition of effort that no one else sees. Furthermore, silence teaches patience. Growth does not happen overnight, and silence forces you to accept the reality of time. Without the pressure of constant updates or comparisons, you learn to focus on the process rather than the outcome. This patience allows you to build not just quickly, but sustainably. Think of a building constructed on weak foundations. It may rise fast, but it will eventually collapse. The strongest structures are those built carefully, brick by brick, in silence until the foundation is unshakable. Another important truth about growth in silence is that it sharpens your internal voice. When there is no external noise, you begin to hear yourself more clearly. You start to distinguish between what you truly want and what the world tells you to want. You develop clarity about your values, your direction, and your priorities. This inner clarity becomes your compass, guiding you long after the noise of validation has faded. People who rely only on external voices lose direction as soon as the applause stops, but those who have grown in silence continue moving forward because their motivation is rooted deep within. And then comes the moment when silence produces something undeniable. After weeks, months, or even years of quiet growth, or the results eventually surface, the person who built themselves in silence does not need to boast because the transformation is visible in their actions, their strength, their skill, and their presence. That is the power of true growth. It speaks without words. When you let silence shape you, your life becomes the loudest testimony of your work. Silence removes distractions and creates clarity, which leads to direction. In the modern world, distractions surround us at every turn: notifications, opinions, comparisons, and endless streams of information. While some of these things might seem small or harmless, together they create a constant noise that drowns out our own voice. When you are always surrounded by noise, you lose the ability to hear what truly matters. That is why silence is not just an escape, but a powerful tool. Silence strips away the unnecessary, leaving behind only the essential. In silence, your mind is no longer pulled in 1,000 directions. Instead, it begins to focus, it begins to filter, and it begins to find clarity. Clarity is the first step to direction. Without clarity, life feels like walking through fog. You may be moving, but you are never sure where you are going, and because of that, you often end up wandering in circles. Distractions keep you in that fog by constantly shifting your attention from one thing to another. Silence, however, it clears the fog. It forces you to stop listening to everything around you and start listening to yourself. In those quiet moments, you ask yourself questions you might otherwise ignore. Who am I becoming? What do I actually want? What matters most to me? And when the answers begin to surface, they give you something noise never could: direction. When you have direction, your energy stops being scattered. Instead of chasing after every opportunity or every trend, you begin to align your actions with a clear purpose. Imagine an archer trying to hit a target. If the archer is surrounded by noise and distraction, they may never take the time to focus on the bullseye. Their arrow will be wasted because their mind is divided. But when the archer enters silence, everything else fades away. The target becomes clear, the aim becomes steady, and the arrow is released with precision. That is what silence does for your life. It takes away the clutter so you can aim at the things that truly matter. It is also important to recognize that clarity is not something you can buy or borrow from others. It has to come from within you, and the only way to access it is by shutting out the noise long enough to hear your own thoughts. Too often, people build their lives on the expectations of others. What society says they should do, what family pressures them to become, or what social media glorifies as success. The result is a life that looks full but feels empty. Silence gives you the courage to step back and evaluate whether the path you are on is really yours. It helps you break free from the borrowed definitions of success and discover what success means for you. The beauty of silence is that it does not just clear your mind temporarily, it strengthens your ability to think deeply. In silence, you learn to observe without rushing, to reflect without judgment, and to connect the dots between your past, present, and future. That reflection creates clarity about patterns in your life, the things that bring you energy and the things that drain it, the habits that help you grow and the ones that hold you back. Without silence, those patterns remain invisible, buried under the constant noise. With silence, they become obvious, and once they are obvious, you can make deliberate choices that move you toward the direction you want. Direction born out of silence is also resilient. When you build clarity in quiet moments, you are not swayed easily by the changing opinions of others. You no longer feel the need to adjust your path every time someone questions it, because your direction is rooted in clarity, not in approval. You have thought it through, you have reflected, and you know why you are doing what you are doing. This kind of clarity gives you an anchor in times of doubt, a compass when the world tries to pull you off course. There is a reason why so many breakthroughs in history have come during moments of solitude. Inventors, thinkers, and leaders often withdrew into silence, not to escape the world, but to see it more clearly. In silence, they were able to recognize connections others overlooked, to identify solutions others missed, and to develop visions that reshaped lives. Their direction was not gifted to them. It was forged in the stillness where distractions had no power. Silence may feel uncomfortable at first. When you strip away distractions, you are left face to face with yourself, and that can be intimidating. But that discomfort is where clarity begins. It forces you to confront your fears, your doubts, and your insecurities. And once you confront them, you strip away their control over you. From that point on, silence is no longer empty. It becomes full of answers, ideas, and clarity. Ultimately, silence is not about avoiding the world, but about preparing yourself to move through it with purpose. When you spend time in silence, distractions lose their hold on you. Clarity begins to guide you and direction becomes natural. Your steps become intentional, your focus sharpens, and your life begins to move in alignment with who you are meant to be. Announcing every step drains energy, building quietly preserves it. At first, this may sound counterintuitive because we are used to believing that sharing our progress keeps us accountable and motivated. But the truth is, constantly announcing your every move doesn't add strength, it takes it away. Every time you tell the world about your next plan or your small victories, You are spending energy that could have been invested in actually doing the work. Words become a substitute for progress, and the applause you receive for intentions can trick you into feeling as though you have already achieved something, when in reality, the journey has barely begun. When you tell people about your goals before you have accomplished them, you create a false sense of completion. The brain registers the praise and recognition as a reward, which can decrease your motivation to follow through. Instead of pushing harder, you relax. Instead of focusing on the process, you bask in the validation. Over time, this habit erodes discipline, leaving you with more announcements than achievements. The energy that should have been channeled into growth is dissipated into seeking approval, and the cycle repeats. Building quietly flips this cycle. When you choose silence, you are not wasting your energy on convincing others that you are working. You are actually working. The absence of applause keeps you hungry, and the absence of validation keeps you grounded. You are not distracted by trying to manage perceptions or craft perfect narratives for the outside world. You are locked into the process itself, and that process becomes your greatest teacher. Every ounce of energy stays where it belongs, fueling your progress. Energy is one of the most valuable resources we have. Just like money or time, it can be spent wisely or wasted carelessly. Every conversation, every announcement, every attempt to prove yourself to others takes a piece of that energy. If you give it away constantly, you have less left for the actual work. That is why so many people feel exhausted by the idea of chasing goals, but never see real results. They have already spent their energy on talking instead of building. In contrast, those who build in silence conserve their energy like a disciplined investor, only spending it where it multiplies, on action, on learning, on persistence. The discipline of silence also protects you from external pressure. When you announce your steps, you invite opinions, doubts, and sometimes even criticism. Suddenly, instead of focusing on your own growth, you are managing the expectations of others. You begin adjusting your path not because it is right for you, but because you fear being judged if you fail. This external pressure can drain your confidence and slow your progress. But when you build quietly, you shield yourself from that unnecessary weight. You give yourself the freedom to experiment, to fail, to start over, and to improve without an audience watching every move. That freedom is invaluable because it allows growth to happen authentically without performance. Building quietly also strengthens resilience. Without the crutch of constant applause, you learn to push forward fueled only by your inner drive. This internal motivation becomes a renewable source of energy, one that doesn't depend on others noticing your efforts. When setbacks come, and they always do, you won't collapse under the silence because you have already trained yourself to operate within it. You don't need validation to keep moving. You don't need approval to continue building. Your progress belongs to you, and that ownership creates a deep, unshakable resilience. There's also a psychological advantage to preserving energy through silence. When no one knows what you are working on, there is no pressure to prove anything until the results are undeniable. The weight of premature expectations is lifted. You are free to take longer if needed, to adjust your strategy if necessary, and to move at the pace that ensures quality over speed. This lowers stress and keeps your energy consistent. On the other hand, those who broadcast every step often feel trapped by their own words. They promise the world something, so now they feel pressured to deliver quickly, even if it means cutting corners. In the long run, this drains them not only of energy, but also of authenticity. Another reason silence preserves energy is that it reduces the temptation of comparison. When you are busy announcing your progress, you inevitably measure it against the progress of others. That mental comparison consumes energy and breeds frustration, either because you feel behind or because you are too focused on staying ahead. In silence, there is no race. There is only you and your journey. That clarity keeps your energy centered on what matters: steady, consistent growth. Finally, when you choose to build quietly, the eventual results speak louder than any announcement ever could. You save your energy not for empty words, but for tangible proof. And when your work finally comes to light, it carries a power that words alone cannot match. People will not need to be convinced because what you have built will be undeniable. The energy you preserve by staying silent is evident in the strength, quality, and depth of your results. In that moment, you realize that silence was not a weakness, but a strategy, one that gave you the stamina to keep building while others burned out in noise. Roots grow underground before a tree ever appears. Your silent work is the same. When you look at a tall, strong tree, it is easy to admire the height, the branches, and the shade it provides. What people rarely notice, however, are the roots buried deep beneath the surface. Those roots, invisible to the eye, are what hold the tree steady in storms, feed it with nourishment, and allow it to grow taller and stronger over time. Without roots, the tree may still sprout, but it will not survive for long. In the same way, your progress and success are not defined by what people see on the outside, but by the unseen work you do in silence. Your roots are the habits you build when no one is watching, the discipline you practice when there is no applause, and the patience you maintain while waiting for results. They're the unseen hours of study, the quiet sacrifices, and the commitment to improvement that most people never notice. Just like a tree cannot rush the growth of its roots, you cannot rush the growth of your foundation. The deeper and stronger your roots are, the higher you will eventually rise. But if you try to grow quickly without building roots, you will collapse under the weight of your own growth. Silent work is the process of rooting yourself in resilience and strength. When you invest in building skills, developing character, and cultivating consistency without announcing it to the world, you are strengthening your roots. People may not notice the work, they may not praise it, but you know it is happening beneath the surface. Over time, those roots prepare you to withstand challenges that would easily topple someone who only focused on appearances. A tree with shallow roots might look impressive at first, but one strong storm is enough to bring it down. Similarly, people who chase quick recognition without doing the silent work often crumble under the first major test. The underground growth of roots also mirrors the idea of preparation. Before anything significant emerges into the world, there must be a period of unseen development. Athletes spend years training quietly before they step into the spotlight. Writers draft countless pages before publishing a book. Musicians practice scales for hours before performing on stage. The world only sees the final performance, but the roots of preparation are what make it possible. Silent work might feel invisible, but it is building the very foundation that makes your visible achievements sustainable. There is also a humility in working like roots. Roots do not boast about their strength. They simply do their job, holding the tree together. When you focus on silent work, you stop seeking attention and instead focus on substance. You understand that real progress is not about showing off, but about becoming strong enough to handle the challenges ahead. The humility of working in silence builds character, and character is the anchor that keeps you steady no matter how high you rise. Another lesson from roots is patience. Roots grow slowly and steadily, often taking years before the tree reaches its full height. Growth in silence requires the same patience. We live in a culture that celebrates instant results, but real growth takes time. If you rush to show results without giving your roots time to deepen, you risk building something fragile. Patience allows you to grow in a way that lasts, and silence provides the space for that patient growth to take place. Each day of silent effort may feel small, but together they create the deep foundation that prepares you for long-term success. Silent work also gives you strength for the storms of life. Just as trees face winds, heavy rains, and harsh seasons, you will face setbacks, failures, and challenges. Without strong roots, you will not survive those storms. But if you have been building yourself quietly, developing resilience, sharpening skills, strengthening your mindset, you will have the roots to hold firm. The storm may shake you, but it will not break you. The storms of life are inevitable, but they reveal who has roots and who does not. The beauty of strong roots is that they eventually support growth that is visible to all. When your silent work has been consistent, the results eventually break through the surface. People may call it sudden success, but you will know it was not sudden at all. It was years of silent effort, patience, and persistence that made it possible. Just as no one sees the roots beneath the tree, no one will fully see the depth of work behind your achievements. But you will know, and that knowledge will give you confidence that your growth is real and unshakable. Silent work is your root system. It is what makes your success authentic and your progress sustainable. It is what allows you to rise higher without collapsing, to endure storms without breaking, and to grow steadily without rushing. Like the roots of a tree, your unseen work holds everything together. It may not be visible now, but one day, the strength of those roots will be evident in everything you do. Results built in silence speak louder than any words or explanations. When you dedicate yourself to working quietly, you may feel at times that no one notices your effort, that your sacrifices go unseen, or that your patience is overlooked. But this is the beauty of building in silence. When your results finally emerge, they carry a power that no amount of talking could ever create. Words may persuade for a moment, but results leave a lasting impression. They cannot be argued with, they cannot be denied, and they do not require justification. People often spend more time talking about what they will do than actually doing it. They announce their plans, their goals, and their dreams to gain approval, but in the process, they weaken their drive to actually bring them to life. Promises are fragile, easily forgotten, and rarely respected without proof. But results are undeniable. When you build in silence, you are not promising, you are producing. You are not trying to convince others of what you are capable of. You are showing them through action. And when that action bears fruit, no explanation is necessary. Results have a unique power because they stand as evidence of your discipline, your persistence, and your strength. Imagine two individuals. One constantly talks about how they are going to achieve something while the other quietly puts in the work. Months or years later, the difference is clear. The first is still explaining their intentions, while the second has results that make explanation unnecessary. People respect outcomes, not intentions. Silent builders understand this and trust the process enough to let the results do the talking. The reason results speak louder than words is that they reach beyond perception. Words can be doubted, questioned, or even ignored, but results demand attention. A person who transforms their body through years of silent discipline does not need to explain their commitment to health. The transformation is visible. An entrepreneur who builds a thriving business after years of unseen effort does not need to justify their strategy. The success is evident. Results make the invisible visible, turning all the silent hours of effort into a reality that others cannot overlook. Another aspect of silent results is authenticity. When you allow your work to speak for itself, you avoid the trap of exaggeration or pretense. Many people oversell themselves with words only to underdeliver in reality. This creates disappointment and damages credibility. Silent builders, on the other hand, understate their work but overdeliver with results. This authenticity not only earns respect but also builds trust. People believe in those whose results match or exceed expectations, and that belief opens doors that words alone could never unlock. There is also a psychological advantage to letting results speak. When you rely on words and explanations, you tie your self-worth to how others respond. If they doubt you, you feel insecure. If they applaud you, you feel validated. But when you let results carry the weight, you are free from this dependency. Results speak regardless of opinion. They cannot be silenced by doubt or erased by criticism. They exist as fact, and that fact strengthens your confidence. You no longer need external approval because your work has already proven itself. Silent results also inspire others in a way words cannot. People are motivated when they see proof that something can be done, not when they hear endless speeches about it. A person who has quietly mastered a craft becomes a living example for others, showing them what dedication looks like in practice. Their life becomes the message. Their results become the story. This form of inspiration is more powerful than motivational words because it carries the weight of reality. It is worth noting that results built in silence are not just louder. They last longer. Words fade quickly, but results endure. Long after the speeches are forgotten, the achievements remain. A book that was quietly written continues to impact readers years later. A skill developed in silence continues to create opportunities for a lifetime. A character shaped by quiet discipline continues to guide decisions through every season of life. Silent results are not temporary, they are deeply rooted, and because of that, they stand the test of time. Finally, results that emerge from silence carry a sense of surprise and impact that cannot be replicated through constant announcements. When people do not expect your progress, the moment you reveal it becomes unforgettable. It is not noise leading up to the result, but the result itself that commands attention. This surprise factor makes your work even more powerful because it shows that you are not seeking validation. You were seeking mastery. You were not chasing recognition, you were pursuing excellence. And excellence, once revealed, always speaks for itself. The lesson of building yourself in silence is not about hiding from the world, nor is it about rejecting recognition. It is about understanding where true transformation happens. Growth is not in the applause, but in the unseen hours of effort. Strength is not in the noise of announcements, but in the quiet repetition of discipline. Direction is not found in comparisons, but in the clarity silence provides. Just like roots beneath the soil, your silent work may not be visible now, but it is preparing you to rise stronger, higher, and steadier than ever before. When the time is right, your results will speak for themselves. You will not need to prove who you are or what you are capable of because your actions will already be the evidence. Silence teaches patience. It builds resilience, and it preserves your energy for what truly matters. And when the world finally sees what you have built, it will understand that it was not sudden. It was the result of a process that began quietly, away from the spotlight, long before anyone else noticed. So trust the silence. Use it to grow, to prepare to strengthen, and to transform. One day the results will emerge, and when they do, they will speak with a power far greater than any words ever could. That is the life-changing advice. Build yourself in silence and let the world hear the sound of your results.